When his abyss-like obsession subsided and a cold clarity brought his reason back into focus, Yun-Chi immediately noticed something that made no sense. He rested his chin on his hand, and after a moment of contemplation, he asked with a look of surprise, "Since that Mist Emperor is so powerful, his premature awakening would undoubtedly pose a colossal threat. Why are you so unconcerned?" The Mist Emperor was the true master of the abyss, powerful enough to create the Sea of Mist and to repair, even transform, two mighty devil artifacts. For such a terrifying existence to awaken from his slumber, the Yuan Emperor should not be this dismissive, no matter the circumstances, especially since they had made a promise to each other 3 million years ago. Under Yun-Chi's steady gaze, Mo Su's expression remained unchanged, clearly aware that Yun-Chi would have such doubts. He did not answer directly, instead saying slowly, "Gathering the abyssal dust one and repairing the devil artifacts were not tasks that could be completed overnight. Before everything was finished, I had numerous contacts with him. I gradually discovered that as the abyssal dust receded, the distance between us grew greater each time he appeared. Later, after the Sea of Mist was formed, he would only ever appear within it. From this, I confirmed one thing: he can only exist where the abyssal dust is sufficiently dense. He cannot exist where it is thin, much less in a space devoid of it." He tilted his head back slightly, his voice long and drawn out. "And so this world gained a pure land." Yun-Chi's gaze froze for a moment before he said with a hint of realization, "So your initial reason for creating this pure land was to deal with the Mist Emperor?" The Yuan Emperor neither confirmed nor denied it, continuing, "He does indeed possess a powerful and bizarre strength, but that power seems to be limited by the form of his existence. Otherwise, why would he need to borrow the hand of an otherworldly being like me to achieve his goals? Later, he created the Sea of Mist, repaired the devil artifacts, and fell into a long slumber. But the world did not freeze just because its abyssal master was sleeping. Instead, it continued to undergo tremendous changes." He raised a hand, his fingertips gently touching the air. "Back then, the abyssal dust in the abyss, whether in the Sea of Mist or the lands of the living, was far more terrifying than it is now. But after surviving in the abyss, I could faintly sense the surrounding abyssal dust slowly thinning. Although a discernible change only occurred every 10,000 years, it was indeed a constant process. Only later did I understand that it was the aura of life slowly seeping in from another world, something the heaven-punishing divine emperor mentioned when he told me of the primal chaos's origin. He called him the heaven-punishing divine emperor, not Father God." His tone betrayed no trace of intimacy or distance, as if speaking the name of a stranger. "Later, around my first millionth year in the abyss, the influx of the aura of life suddenly intensified, becoming several times, then dozens, then hundreds of times greater than before. It was also accompanied by primordial chaos chi and elemental divine auras. Clearly, a cataclysmic event had occurred in the other world. I later learned from the beings who fell into the abyss that the god and devil races had finally erupted into a vicious war, leading to the burial of both gods and devils, the shattering of the heavens and earth, and the collapse of order." Yun-Chi. The cataclysm in the other world brought a corresponding cataclysm to the abyss. The massive influx of the aura of life neutralized the abyssal dust, while the primordial chaos chi and elemental divine auras enriched the world's spiritual energy, greatly increasing the speed and power of elemental profound energy to cultivation. This change lasted for 500,000 years before it began to gradually weaken, and it only mostly ceased after 1,000,000 years. Yun-Chi knew that this was when the war between the gods and devils had ended. The aura of life continues to seep in slowly even now, but it has returned to its former subtlety. The abyss of today is a far cry from the abyss of 3 million years ago, and the me of today is not the me of 3 million years ago. So, Yun-Chi seemed to understand slightly. "Are you saying that even if the Mist Emperor awakens, he no longer poses a threat to you?" Mo Su still did not answer directly, or perhaps he simply did not care whether the Mist Emperor was a threat to him. He said slowly, "Even if he were to unleash the Sea of Mist now and cover the abyss in abyssal dust once more, he could no longer truly interfere with me. Moreover, having awakened prematurely, his power is certainly incomplete. As the facts have shown, although he sensed an abnormality and broke his slumber early, he can only cower and roar within the Sea of Mist. Several years have passed, yet he has not taken a single step out of it, let alone approach the Pure Land. Every appearance he makes, every roar he lets out, is nothing but a vent for his own incompetence and powerlessness. Since that is the case, and with the eternal Pure Land so close at hand, why should I divert my attention to him? In his current state, is he even worthy of it? Yun Qi felt his heart slowly sinking into a cold, deep sea. When Mosu spoke of unleashing the sea of mist and covering the abyss in abyssal dust once more, his expression was so calm and indifferent, without a shred of pity, not even coldness. It was as if the countless lives in the abyss who would surely face annihilation were nothing in his eyes. He wanted to ask, "Are you certain that the Mist Emperor who has appeared now is the same abyssal master from back then? And what is this so-called abnormality?" But after a brief moment of consideration, he held his tongue. "I understand." Yun Qi nodded slightly. "Just as you said before, your life now has room for only one thing." Mosu glanced at him, a faint smile on his lips. "That's right." All his thoughts were now focused on a single matter. As for everything else, even if the Mist Emperor awakened, even if the heavens collapsed and the earth sundered, even if the abyss was annihilated, as long as it did not interfere with him, he cared not at all. His faint reply was directed at Yun Qi, his eyes looking straight into Yun Qi's. He was telling him, without any attempt to conceal it, that although he was Nixuan's successor, although he was a brother he was willing to acknowledge and a heaven-sent surprise, he could never surpass the one and only thing in his heart, not even if Nixuan himself were reborn. The two stared at each other for several breaths before Yun Qi spoke, his eyes filled with sincerity. "When you successfully created a complete small world, with a sliver of creation God 3 power, you must have understood that you had already touched the boundary of the creation God level. Although creation gods are special beings personally created by the ancestral God 4, and worldly beings can only approach that level but never achieve it, the fact that you could touch the boundary of creation God power means your strength, and your standing far surpass all other living beings in this era, including the other 11 true gods of the abyss. In the eternal Pure Land you wish to step into, there could not possibly be any being who could match you. In other words, in the entire primal chaos, you are without a doubt the most powerful existence, so powerful that you don't even spare a glance for the awakened Mist Emperor. A person as mighty as you should be the most unrestrained person in the world. No matter what you wish to do, no one could stop you, no one would dare defy you. There is nothing you cannot obtain, nothing you cannot achieve. But why are you so stubbornly imprisoning yourself in a cage, denying yourself freedom or even a moment's respite, when you clearly stand at the pinnacle of the world? I believe you must know that with your power, you are more than capable of sparing some attention for other things while pursuing your goal. People pursued power, but those who were purely obsessed with the profound way were few and far between. The vast majority sought great power to stand on higher ground, to proudly enjoy the admiration of others, to look down upon and manipulate the fates of the weak, and to wantonly satisfy their own desires. Yet Mosu, the most powerful being in the entire primal chaos, an existence who approached the level of a creation god, had woven for himself a cage of endless misery and loneliness, never straying a single step from it. Mosu smiled, then averted his gaze, continuing to stare into the emptiness before him. "If elder brother Nixuan saw me today, he would surely try to persuade me just as you have. But only one's own heart knows its measure. I am not worthy." "What do you mean, not worthy?" Yun Qi asked. Mosu slowly closed his eyes, concealing the divine light within them. He opened them a moment later and spoke faintly. "Back then, if Xiao Dai had not shielded me with her body, I would have been annihilated in both body and soul 3 million years ago. There would be no Mosu today, no Yuan Emperor, no abyssal world. The protection of the 2 devil artifacts left Xiao Dai with a sliver of life, but that sliver was far outweighed by her will to die, because she could not forgive herself." Speaking of the past, Mosu's words and expression were so calm, with no tremor in his voice, no ripple of emotion. But an indescribable sorrow spontaneously arose from the depths of Yun Qi's soul, spreading silently through his sea of consciousness, lingering for a long time. The Panaming Void-Piercing Mirror is the core devil artifact of the Panaming Devil clan, containing the clan's most powerful spatial energy. The Panaming Devil Emperor doted on Xiao Dai the most, and he did not hesitate to place the clan's most important artifact on her person, just to ensure her safety against any unforeseen danger. The Nemo Reversal Pearl is the core devil artifact of the Nilun Devil clan, possessing the clan's most powerful temporal energy, enough to rival the god race's heavenly chronosphere pearl. At that time, everyone believed the Nemo Reversal Pearl was in the hands of the Nilun Devil Emperor. In truth, even within the vast devil race, fewer than 10 people knew that it had always been with the Nilun Crown Prince. Xiao Dai was one of them. This was because although she and the Nilun Crown Prince belonged to different devil clans, they grew up together and were extremely close, more so than actual siblings. He was, in her words, the person who treated her best in the world. The context of Mo Su's words suddenly shifted. Back then, the news that the heaven-punishing divine emperor intended to execute me personally in the god realm of absolute beginning was deliberately released by him to lure Xiao Dai there. With the spatial power of the Panaming void-piercing mirror, there was a great hope of rescuing me, even from the heaven-punishing divine emperor himself. At that time, the heaven-punishing divine emperor had what he believed were unavoidable reasons to execute me. As for Xiao Dai, he held extreme hatred for her. He wanted to kill her even more and perhaps seize the Panaming void-piercing mirror in the process. Xiao Dai was so clever, how could she not have known? But she still came, and she brought not only the Panaming void-piercing mirror, but also the Nemo reversal pearl. Yun Qi had already learned some of this from Nixuan's memory fragments, but hearing it from Mo Su now was a completely different experience. The appearance of the Nemo reversal pearl was beyond the heaven-punishing divine emperor's expectations. The combined burst of spatial and temporal power briefly sealed even his creation god power. But in the instant before we were about to escape, he used the ancestral sword to extinguish all hope. Mo Su's gaze lifted slightly, as if piercing through an even more distant time and space. I remember in my youth, I held an endless yearning for the ultimate power. I once asked him, under what circumstances would the divine light of the ancestral sword bloom upon the world? He said, only when there was no other choice. He said he would rather never have to use the ancestral sword's might in his entire life. On that day, I finally witnessed him reveal the heaven-punishing ancestral sword and unleash its might, a power sufficient to destroy the heavenly way. And it was directed at me. No one in the world could ever truly comprehend the emotions Mo Su felt in that moment. The might of the ancestral sword destroyed the seal of space and time, damaged the Panaming void-piercing mirror and the Nemo reversal pearl, and cast Xiao Dai and me, along with the two devil artifacts, into the abyss of nothingness. During that hopeless fall, I learned that she had fled her clan with the Panaming void-piercing mirror, and that she had tricked the Nemo reversal pearl from the Nilun Crown Prince, exploiting his affection and trust for her. She betrayed her clan, hurt the person who treated her best, the Nilun Crown Prince, and caused the devil race to lose two devil artifacts vital to their lifeline, becoming the greatest sinner in the history of the Panaming devil clan and the entire devil race. And all of it was for me. His words, his voice, remained just as calm, because the images, the sounds, all the pain and despair of that time had carved and ground his heart and soul countless times over these millions of years. No one could ever know just how many scars were etched upon his soul, the most powerful in the world, each one bleeding eternally, each one never to heal. I asked her, was it worth it? She said that for me she had no regrets. Then she said she no longer had the face to live in this world. Even if she were to fall into reincarnation after death and suffer 10,000 lifetimes of purgatorial punishment, she would not have the face to meet anyone from the devil race. Yun Qi took a deep breath, but his chest still felt heavy and suffocated. My father by blood, for the sake of the justice he upheld, did not hesitate to use the ancestral sword on me. And my Xiao Dai for my sake. His voice paused. He turned his gaze, and still no emotion could be seen in his eyes. So do you understand now what I mean by not worthy? Yun Qi was silent for a moment. What does ultimate power matter? Mo Su's voice softened, as if speaking to Yun Qi, but even more to himself. What I pursue is something that, for an ordinary person, is as easy as lifting a hand. If I can let her awaken safely, then power, lifespan, status, everything I possess can be abandoned, can be sacrificed. Yun Qi sighed in his heart and could only say calmly, there is no true empathy in this world. As such, between heaven and earth, there is only one person who can console you, therefore, for your sake, no matter how much she may crave the peace of sleep, she will definitely wake up. Mo Su smiled, this time with infinite warmth. Of course. He raised his right hand and gently touched the black bracelet on his left wrist, each finger tracing it with endless fondness and affection. Just then, a crimson light suddenly appeared before Mo Su. It was a blazing flame that outlined the silhouette of a red bird before vanishing in an instant. Lixian is paying a visit. How rare! Mo Su sighed softly. I thought she would never step into this hall again in this lifetime. Lixian, a divine officer. Yun Qi took the opportunity to say, "In that case, it's about time for me to take my leave. If I stay any longer, I'm afraid my Kaylee will start to worry." The moment the words left his mouth, Yun Qi regretted them. It was like poking Mosu right where it hurt the most. Mosu, however, smiled and said, "Very well. I watched Kaylee grow up. She has a pure heart. Since her heart belongs to you, she will surely be true to you for life. You must never let her down." "Of course," Yun Qi replied with a smile as he turned to leave. Mosu raised his hand and touched Yun Qi's shoulder. Instantly, the space before them contracted sharply. In a fleeting daze, Yun Qi found himself standing before the hall's entrance. Mosu did not stop but walked out of the Eden Sacred Hall with Yun Qi. Dugu Zhaiyuan, who had been guarding the entrance, was stunned for several breaths when he saw Yun Qi emerging side by side with the Yuan Emperor before he moved to bow. A storm of shock surged through his heart. Even the Grand Divine Officer would never dare to walk alongside the Yuan Emperor. Just as Yun Qi was about to bid farewell, Mosu suddenly said, "As your elder brother, there is something I must remind you of." Dugu Zhaiyuan's body trembled violently. He had been kneeling on one knee, but he almost collapsed into a full kowtow. "Please speak, elder brother." Dugu Zhaiyuan's body, which he had just steadied, almost swayed again. As the first Abyssal Knight, Dugu Zhaiyuan was also the Yuan Emperor's personal attendant, and held a very special status by his side. Although the Yuan Emperor had agreed to Yun Qi's wish not to publicize their sworn brotherhood, there was no need to hide it from Dugu Zhaiyuan. Mosu's expression was placid as he spoke faintly. "Shen Wu Yanai has developed the intent to kill you.